Picture a tavern on a colonial road in New Jersey, a place built for meals, ale, and weary travelers. Now picture that same building in a crisis, suddenly asked to do a job it was never designed for, to keep a government alive, to turn rebellion into paperwork, and help an idea called New Jersey solidify into a state. That's our story today. This is the Indian King Tavern in Haddonfield, New Jersey. Welcome to Insights into History, Season 1, Episode 8, The Indian King. To understand how a tavern ends up shaping a state, we have to widen the lens first. We have to rewind past a revolution and ask a simple question. Who came here and why? When most people hear the word Quakers, they jump straight to William Penn in Pennsylvania. And sure, Pennsylvania becomes a major Quaker stronghold. But the religious society of Friends starts across the ocean in 17th century England, and they don't start out as a comfortable, accepted church group. They're treated like agitators. They refuse the rituals and hierarchy of the Church of England. They insist that faith isn't something handed down by an institution, but something lived directly. That kind of belief comes with a price when the state prefers conformity. Quakers are fined, locked up, harassed, pressured to fall in line. So they do what people have done again and again when their homes become unsafe. They look outward. They look for places where they can build communities with room to breathe. In time, Quaker communities flourish in Pennsylvania, but they also shape what becomes West Jersey, especially after the 1670s, when the rules around land ownership create an opening for large Quaker settlement and Quaker influence in governance. And here's the thing. New Jersey isn't born as a tidy state with clear borders and a neat identity. Early on, it's a contested landscape, shuffled between empires and trading companies like a prize. Parts of the region sit under Dutch claims as part of New Netherland. Reaching back into the early 1600s, along the Delaware River, the Swedes add yet another layer, planning New Sweden in 1638. Each claim leaves behind names, relationships, and competing expectations about who's in charge. Then, in 1664, the English seize control of New Netherland, including New Amsterdam. The land that becomes New Jersey is granted and re-granted through political connections back in England until it's controlled by two proprietors, Sir George Carteret and Lord Berkeley. It's named New Jersey after the Channel Island of Jersey. One decision changes the direction of the region. Berkeley sells his share. Quakers step into the resulting vacuum and become major players in what comes to be known as West Jersey. For a period, that helps create a reputation, at least compared to other colonies, for broader religious tolerance and a different approach to how communities are run. Eventually, the map shifts again. In 1702, East and West Jersey are reunited as a royal colony. For decades after that, New Jersey even shares a governor with New York, until 1738, when it finally gets its own separate administration. Now let's tighten the focus to the ground level, where history starts to feel like footsteps and wagon wheels. If you're moving through colonial South Jersey, there's a route that matters more than most. The King's Highway. It's not just a road. It's a connector of farms to markets, towns to towns, and rumor to rumor. And near a key crossing point on the Cooper River, a settlement grows, one that becomes Haddonfield. One of the most remarkable figures in that origin story is Elizabeth Haddon. Her father, John Haddon, acquires a large tract of land in West Jersey, but he doesn't come over himself. Instead, he sends his daughter across the Atlantic to take possession and manage it. Think about that for a second. Early 1700s. A young woman crossing an ocean not as a passenger following someone else's plan, but as a person responsible for the land and the future of the settlement. She arrives and helps turn property into community. In 1713, Elizabeth and her husband, the Quaker minister John Estall, built a brick home known as New Haddonfield Plantation, often treated as one of the foundational landmarks in the town's early history. Not long after, a Quaker meeting house follows, and you see that familiar colonial pattern taking shape. Faith, work, trade, and town life braided together until the settlement starts to feel permanent. Haddonfield becomes a local hub. Farms surround it. Tradespeople set up shop. Blacksmiths, stores, services for travelers and residents alike. And in 1764, the town organizes what becomes the Friendship Fire Company, still recognized as the second oldest volunteer fire company in continuous existence in the United States. So by the time we reach the middle of the 1700s, Haddonfield isn't just a dot on the map. It's a place people pass through, a place where news arrives, and a place where the road makes it matter. And that brings us to the building at the center of this episode. In the colonial world, a tavern isn't just a bar. It's the community's living room. It's where travelers find a bed, where locals find the latest gossip, where business gets negotiated, and where official notices can be posted. In many towns, taverns function like informal courtrooms, post offices, and meeting halls all rolled into one. And that also means they're politically charged spaces, because when everyone's talking, ideas don't stay quiet for long. As tensions rise in the colonies, taverns become dangerous places, not because of the drinks, but because they're where the temperature of public opinion can spike. They're where frustration turns into strategy, where whispers turn into arguments, and arguments turn into decisions. Around 1750, a Quaker merchant and ship owner named Matthias Aston builds what becomes one of the larger public houses along that road. It's a serious building, the kind of place meant to serve a constant flow of travelers. But by the time rebellion is no longer theoretical, anyone suspected of loyalist sympathies finds themselves under pressure. The mood hardens. Neutrality becomes suspicious. Aston sells the property, returns to England, and later accounts say he's tried and convicted of treason in absentia, with his property seized to support the revolutionary cause. The tavern passes to Thomas Redman, the town apothecary. And Redman isn't just a businessman. He's also the clerk of the local Friends meeting. That matters, because Quakers are pacifists, and pacifism during a war for independence can look to the wrong eyes like refusal. Statements about not bearing arms can be twisted into signs of disloyalty. In 1777, Redman is arrested and charged with sedition. Soon after, ownership shifts again, this time to Hugh Creighton. Creighton already runs another tavern nearby with a name that's about to matter a lot: the Indian King. He transfers that name to the larger tavern on Kings Highway. And that's when the Indian King Tavern, as we recognize it today, is born. And then the war stops being something people discuss over a table. It becomes something that shows up at your door. By 1777, British and Hessian forces are moving through the region. Philadelphia is under British control. The Delaware River Campaign is underway. Roads like the Kings Highway aren't just for commerce anymore. They're arteries for armies. If you control the roads, you control movement, supplies, intelligence, and fear. New Jersey's government at this moment is young and exposed. It doesn't have the deep, settled infrastructure of a long-established nation. It has to be flexible just to survive. And it needs a place to operate that's practical, reachable, and, at least relatively speaking, safe enough to gather. So from January through September of 1777, New Jersey's Patriot legislature meets at the Indian King Tavern. Let that land for a second. A tavern becomes a state house. A building meant for travelers becomes a place where law and identity are being hammered into shape, while an enemy army is close enough to make every meeting feel temporary. And the lawmakers don't just meet there to talk. They do the work of turning revolution into government. They enter the Declaration of Independence into New Jersey's legislative minutes. They adopt the Great Seal of the state of New Jersey. And they begin shifting their language and their assumptions away from colony and towards state. That might sound like semantics, but in politics, words aren't decoration. Words are architecture. Once you record independence into official minutes, once you stamp papers with a seal meant for a state, you're not only claiming authority, you're practicing it. You're making it real through repetition and record keeping. In that upstairs room, New Jersey is acting like a government long enough to become one. And all the while, outside that tavern, the war churns. Haddonfield becomes a staging ground for British and Hessian activity later in 1777, tied to the fighting along the Delaware River. This is part of the push and pull surrounding the forts and the supply lines, efforts to break American control and secure British logistics into Philadelphia. Local folklore holds onto a story that captures the tension of that time. It says that John Gill forced to host Hessian commander Colonel Carl von Donop, overhears plans and manages to send a warning toward Red Bank. toward the Whittle family, toward Fort Mercer. It's the kind of story people tell because it fits the emotional reality of occupation. The sense that information could save lives, that a whispered message could shift an outcome, and that ordinary people were constantly being tested. Whether every detail can be proven isn't the only point. The story persists because it matches what we know about occupied places. The searches, the interrogations, the way panic outruns facts. The way a town can feel like it's holding its breath. And as control shifts yet again, the irony deepens. The same tavern that hosts British and Hessian officers also later hosts Continental troops. People like Anthony Wayne and Lafayette move through on the same roads, past the same buildings, possibly even through the same rooms. The flags change, the uniforms change, but the geography stays put, and the tavern remains what has always been, a crossroads. Here's what makes the Indian King Tavern rare. It survives. So many buildings connected to the Revolution don't. Wood burns, foundations sink, towns rebuild. History gets paved over not out of malice, but out of ordinary life moving forward. But the Indian King Tavern endures long enough for people to realize what it represents. In 1903, New Jersey acquires it as the state's first state-owned historic site. Later renovations aim to bring it back closer to its colonial appearance. Today, it stands as a museum and historic site. Something you can walk into, not just read about. And when you do walk in, you're not simply touring an old room with creaky floors. You're stepping into a place that, at a moment when everything could have fractured, helped hold a government together. Not a battlefield everyone memorizes. Not a monument printed on postcards. A tavern, a public house on a busy road. An upstairs space where elected officials kept meeting, kept recording, kept sealing documents, and kept treating independence like something you administer, not just something you declare. That's the kind of history we chase here. Overlooked places where the biggest outcomes take shape, quietly. That wraps up this episode of Insights into History. Episode 9 starts our next two-part story on Dewey's Olympia, so don't miss it. If you have feedback, suggestions, or a story you think deserves a closer look, email comments at insightsintothings.com. That's comments at insightsintothings.com. You can also call 856-403-8788. That's 856-403-8788. Leave a voice message. And if you'd like, we may include it in a future show